Well, hey, welcome to Resonate Briefs. These are brief chats which go on. I'm not, sorry, my name's Phil Stokes. And introductions first. And I have a special guest here today, Dr. Andrew Parnham. And welcome to Resonate, Andy. It's nice to see you.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
I'm just wandering around my local park trying to not to bump into people because it's very busy here. I don't know about you, but have you found parks just have become incredibly busy
in
this period? And,
yeah. It'd be all right if you didn't have to keep 2 meters away from people.
Exactly. I think it's easier to stay on the streets and not to bump into folk at the moment. But yeah, so I just thought I'd combine a little bit of a chat with some friends online and to ask them what's resonating with them. The word resonate just means to chime with, to, what gets you going, basically, is the idea of these little chats. And in this particular cultural moment and in the sphere in which you're engaged with, Andy, I know that you share a lot, talk a lot about happiness. You've written a book on that, I do believe. So, so I'm going to ask you very simply, Andrew, what is going on? What's for you really resonating in this cultural moment?
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on, isn't there? Well, there's a lot going on, and there's not a lot going on. Depends how you look at it. Here's my thought, really. It's obviously this virus is affecting the whole world, obviously, but in a way, it affects different people in different parts of the world in some ways differently, not so much physically, but culturally, because that's what you're talking about, cultural, and how people respond to it. And here's one or two of my reflections. We in the West, classically, we kind of take our health for granted in many ways. We just assume certain things. We have a relatively high standard of it. Similarly, we kind of take our wealth, such as it is, for granted, certainly compared to other parts of the world, and happiness as pleasure, if you like. Those are three words that I've used throughout the book: health, wealth, and happiness as pleasure. And it's the stuff that, in many ways, our culture, our society is founded on in terms of the material and physical. So much so that we can't imagine life without all these things. Indeed, that's where we find ourselves. There's the rub. And so the thing is that, in fact, infectious disease is a good case in point, isn't it? 150 years ago, in this part of the world, we were suffering and dying from cholera, infectious diseases, and then we kind of conquered them through sanitation, public health, through vaccination, antibiotics, and the rest of it. And so that's on one level why it's hard, because we'd sorted this, we got this one done, we'd beaten all these bugs, and now not only
right. I remember having my vaccines at school, thinking, well, that's me sorted for life.
Yeah. We're not going to be.
I'm inoculated against this, that, and the other.
Yeah, we don't get malaria, blah, blah, blah. And we're so used, therefore, with that and other things, to fixing problems. When problems arise, we fix them. We're the fix-it society. And here's the thing about this. We can't fix this one. It will take us a year and a half, maybe, to do it. And not only can we not fix it, it actually is fixing us in the sense that it's threatening and undermining us, and we feel vulnerable, we feel a loss of control, we feel this uncertainty, and the things that we've relied on, we just every day, our job, the office, travel, shopping, holidays, suddenly they aren't there. And here's my thought on that, and come back on this as well. It's like this. I couldn't think of a better analogy. Maybe you can dream up a better one, but it kind of feels a bit like this, like an orange that's got this peel around it, kind of protective peel. That's a bit like the material well-being that we enjoy and things we take for granted. Somehow that's been peeled away, it's been stripped away, and underneath is this vulnerable, sensitive core, and we're kind of, well, and there's more to say on that, but you tell me what you think.
Well, it's very apt, isn't it? We're all feeling raw. We're all feeling stripped, and all our toys are taken away we're probably still relying on Netflix and whatever it is to medicate on some levels, but there's so much that we're realizing, like you said, that we're just not in control of.
Yeah, it's that
It
loss
is an
of
interesting.
control.
Yes, yeah,
Because we're the control culture, aren't we?
yeah.
But to take it on a bit further, that's the threat. But and there's a further threat in it, but which maybe can become an opportunity as well. The further threat is that when you take away, as it were, that outer peel, protective things we just don't think about but rely on, the material, the physical, and then suddenly what we've got is ourselves, our inner selves, our thoughts, our feelings, our anxieties. We're even cut off from those who we often would rely on, you know, in the flesh, as it were, and we're thrown back on ourselves, or at least on those sources and resources that maybe we don't think about very much and we don't reflect on. And the question then arises, so what are we going to do? We're just going to default to Netflix. There's nothing wrong with Netflix, but if that's the only place we go, but we can't, you know, all this, relatively speaking, all this time we've got, what do we do with that? How do we respond? Where do we go inside? And
it's suddenly interesting, isn't it? We've lost so many things, but we're suddenly rich from time.
Yeah,
in an interesting way.
Yeah. So I think that's a big question for us all in our society, is how do we respond? And the default response, when we can't do the things that we often do, apart from the internet, is to withdraw into some kind of, well, either into fear and anxiety or into some kind of default addiction kind of thing, or another way, which is actually a reflective process, both within ourselves, engaging with other people in the ways we can, and actually, obviously, from the point of view of faith, where are we going to go to? Where are we going to find the resources? And I think that will leads on to the thought about what we as a church
next
can do.
And I guess that's where I want to land these little short reflections, is really what's the practical way of beginning to prepare for what comes next, because there is a next.
Yeah.
You know, we are in a liminal situation, and we're in the transition between, you know, I mean, a lot of people say this is the new normal, but it's not. It's the new normal before. We don't know what the new normal is.
No, we haven't got it yet.
We haven't got there yet. So this transition feels like the new normal, but it's not. It's not the new normal. We will come out the other side of it, but what we will look like the other side of it, is all up for grabs, isn't it?
By definition, it is a transition, and when you transition, you're going to go into something else. I mean, I've got to.
That creates all sorts of anxieties for people because of the unknown, all those levels of unknown, layers of unknown, and lack of control. But so lots of people are trying to learn and say, okay, let's take control of this and that and the other, doing our usual attempt to master it.
Yeah.
But as people of faith, like this is the question, isn't it? What are we? How should we respond and prepare in this situation? As a doctor and an author, what's your, and a believer, what's your takeaways, Andy?
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple of
coming next.
Yeah, I've got a couple of thoughts on that, or a couple of categories. I'll say what they are in a sec. But just going back to that circle that I mentioned, or those words, health, wealth, and happiness. In the book, I put them on the left-hand side of a circle with a dividing line between the two halves. And on the other side, this is the right-hand side, I've got relationships, meaning, and fulfillment. And this is before COVID hit us, but it turns out from the research that although we put a lot of emphasis in our society on health, wealth, and pleasure, the material, those domains of relationship, community, meaning and purpose, and, if you like, fulfillment, are the things that often have been Cinderellas that we haven't spent time on investing in, but turn out to be the things that are essential for well-being and happiness. So if we invest in relationship and community, and we invest in what we understand by meaning and purpose, those are the things that turn out to be necessary. And it seems to me those are the two areas for us to kind of really give some thought to as people, leave alone as people. In terms of the relationships, they're not things that you can fix. They're like the well health and the wealth stuff. They're things that you can engage with and relate to and connect with. And I think that's the important thing. So on the relational side, my thoughts would be like this, that we're not here to fix, but we are to engage with people in whatever way is possible to make sure we are not withdrawing, but engaging. And this is how I would put it: to connect with, to feel with, to be with, and to walk with other people. And if we can do that, and if we can do that, people, particularly that feeling with, it's not just kind of coming up with 8 things you should do in COVID kind of thing. That's helpful, but it's actually it's just connecting with people. And that kind of leads on to the other bit. If that's relational, then the other side is the kind of meaningful part. And I think, you know, we lose that orange peel and we're in that sensitive core. That's the place not to run away from like we usually do, but to actually stay with and to say, so what, from here on in, can I reflect on what my priorities are and what my resources are, not physical resources simply, paracetamol or, you know, whatever, but the resources that come from within and between. Their emotional resources, relational, spiritual resources. Where do I go for that? How am I going? I've got a bit of time and I can connect with people. How can we help each other in that?
Brilliant. Andy, that's just so helpful. And I just want to say to our listeners, if anyone wants to get in touch, we'll put some details at the base of this little video of how you can get hold of Andy's book and any other connection points. And this place, hopefully, for people to ask questions. So if you want to ask questions, again, the contact will be down there below the video.
Wow.
Andy, thank you so much. That's been so interesting. You are always a joy to talk with, my friend.
And you haven't bumped into anybody, have you? You've done really well.
I mean, it is a bit of a miracle, I tell you. It's an obstacle course in here. I did 5 tips earlier on how to do silence and solitude.
Wow.
Or at least my 5 tips. Sort of things like leave your phone where it is when you go to the loo. Don't take it with you.
Yeah.
Walk the streets if the park is an obstacle course. Which I did not take my own advice today. I just continued around the park. I can't remember what the other 3 were. I'll put them down below this video.
Send them through.
Yeah. So great. I'm going to sign off because we don't want to get too long, but keep it bite-sized for people. These Resonate videos, we're hopefully going to keep them going. Yeah. And you'll probably hear from Andy again. But meanwhile, thank you very much, Andy.
Brilliant. Thanks.
God bless.
Stay safe. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye. Cheers.